archived and you can look at it later. Please remember to switch your microphones on and off. So if I move straight to apologies, we do have 3 today, Ivan Old, Blake Payne and Pam Posnett. Indeed. So if we move straight to the minutes, pages 5 to 16, I move that the minutes of the meeting held on March the 10th, 2017 be taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Urgent items, agenda item 2, I have none. Declarations of interest, does anyone have any interest in any respect of any items on this agenda? I think it's safe to assume that those of us who are on district councils will declare a personal interest for agenda item 6 regarding district council collection tax. So any others apart from those? No, that's great. Agenda item 4, 1617 provisional revenue and capital outturn. First report sets out the revenue and capital outturn, as it says on the tin, and seeks our approval for some additional commitments and some carry forwards. Chris Tambini will present the report, and then I'll ask Byron, Cabinet Lead Member for Resources, to speak. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you. Overall, the report presents a positive picture of the financial performance in 16-17. In terms of the revenue budget, it shows a small underspend after money has been allocated and put aside for capital developments and also funding for the transformation programme. Most services did underspend, but they underspent fairly marginally. There were larger underspends in adults and communities, and that was mainly due to lower growth due to reduced demographic pressures. And we also didn't need to spend the contingency we put aside for the non-achievement of savings, which was a positive. Although good performance, there are some pressures. You'll see that there's a £2.4 million overspend on special education needs. And although the children's social care budget did underspend by 1.5 million, which is positive, this was after about £8 million worth of growth was allocated to that budget. And I also don't need to remind members of the financial pressures we have ahead. In terms of the capital programme, the report sets out the projects that were delivered. There's a lot of major projects, particularly around schools and highways within the report. I'm not going to go through them here. We've also managed to achieve the 95% target for spend. The recommendations are set out on the green order paper.
Thank you, Chris. Byron?
Yes, I think it's a very encouraging report, and it shows that we are continuing with our savings programmes and indeed achieving savings early, which is why we've got underspends. What those underspends have enabled us to do is to fund the capital programme, although looking into the future, we still will be short of money for the capital programme in the years ahead, so very little helps, as they say. But nevertheless, on the outturn this year, we've been able to put £8.5 million towards it, another £2 million towards the transformation programme, which continues, and the waste strategy is now funded as well with £500,000. I think you might note in the report that earmarked funds continue to fall, about half of what they used to be, in spite of predictions being made by some members of the council, which shows that we keep our promises. The only thing that really worries me about our position, apart from the future, of course, which is still very challenging, is the amount of debt which continues to overhang us. 274 million we've still got. We've reduced it by 115 million over the last few years, which is quite an achievement, but it's still a lot of money, and in the end it just shows that we are right not to increase it and to keep up our programme of not borrowing. Other councils are finding themselves in difficulties and having to borrow. We are not. So I'm very happy to move the motion on the green order paper.
Thank you, Brian. Richard Shepherd.
Thank you, Chairman. I second the motion and support Byron's comments.
We have no other speakers, so all in favour of the motion moved by Byron, seconded by Richard. Thank you. Annual Treasury Management Report 1617. sets out action taken and the performance achieved in respect of the Treasury management activities of the County Council. Declan Keegan, Head of Finance, will present the report. Then I'll go again back to Byron. Over to you, Declan.
Thank you. So yeah, it's just purely an update on the activity taken during 2016-17. The same report has also been presented to Corporate Governance Committee, who are supportive of the content. During the financial year, there were no breaches of the Treasury management policy. We only had one small anomaly, which was a bank which was downgraded partway through a loan period, but the monies was repaid to us without any difficulties. Looking at performance of debt first, as Byron had mentioned, there's been no new loans in the period, which has been the position since 2010, and it's likely to be the position across the course of the MTFS. There have been limited opportunities to repay debt in 2016-17, with only £500,000 being allowed to be repaid without penalty. On the investment side of things, there was a bit more activity. We did an average balance of £200 million to invest, and we returned 0.75% on that, which is comfortably in excess of the average base rate of the year, which is only 0.34%. And if we compare that to the short-term money market loans, which is kind of as near as we can get to risk-free, that was only 0.23%. So by lending to banks between 6 and 12-month periods, we've got a financial return of approximately £1 million better than otherwise, for minimal additional risk. That's all I was going to say on the report. The Cabinet's just asked to note the report.
Thank you, Declan. Byron?
Yes, but there are encouraging things in the report. I mean, our interest payable, of course, is the downside of it, which is 15.5 million. And we can't do much about that because we can't pay some of the debt, repay some of the debt early and refinance it as we might wish to do. But that's an historical thing. So the debt, the long-term debt, will be repaid when it becomes due. However, on where we have balances, which we are beginning to use more and more to offset the debt, we are now starting to get quite encouraging interest payments on those, although the interest that we receive is nothing like as much as we have to pay out on the equivalent sums. As I said in the previous paper, we have no plans to increase the debt. In fact, our plans are to reduce it when we can. So at this moment we note it, everything's under control, and I think we should be quite pleased with the report. So I move the motion.
Thank you, Byron. Richard?
I second that, Chairman.
Thank you. I think it's a job well done. As I say in other places, it's good when it's done well, because if it's not, it's a disaster. And I am pleased that we haven't increased debt. I'm pleased that we are getting a good return on the balances. Okay, it's a good return compared to the market, but it's still a pretty poor return, really. But I think we're doing well with it, so congratulations, Declan. I have no other speakers, so the motion was moved by Byron and seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you. District Council collection of council tax. Our next report concerns District Council's performance for collecting council tax compared to other county areas, and seeks support for a review to be undertaken of their collection and forecasting procedures so we can help them improve. You're going to introduce this, aren't you, Chris? And then Byron's going to comment. Can I also ask members to note I have received an official letter from the leader of Blaby District Council. Chris?
The County Council is always looking at ways to generate income and make efficiency savings, because obviously by doing this you reduce the amount of cuts we need to make to frontline services. Our main source of income is council tax, and by 2020 we think about £300 million worth of income will come our way by way of council tax. So we need to make sure we do maximise that income, and districts do collect the money in the most kind of effective and efficient way. We do look at council tax collection annually when comparable information is available, and the last review did indicate that there were two areas where we thought performance could be improved. The first one is around the overall collection, where performance across all the districts is below average, and we believe that performance should at least be upper quartile for a place such as Leicestershire, and this could generate in the order of £3 million of income. The second issue is around forecasting. We believe districts could improve the way they predict future council tax, and we think those two factors taken together could generate an extra £6 million for the budgets of fire, police, county and districts together. On top of that, there are other areas such as better policing of discounts, such as single-person discounts, where we think we could generate some more income. They're not factored into those figures that I've just quoted. The report recommends we review council tax collection to see if processes can be improved. I have already raised this with officers and the idea has been rejected, hence the recommendations on the order paper. If I could just say one thing before I finish. I have had emails from District Section 151 officers saying we've got this wrong. I don't think we have, but if we have, I'll be the first to accept it. In fact, I think we were that confident we would get at least some benefit from this review, that we removed the saving for rural bus subsidy as part of last year's budget and factored in some additional income from this review. And I think the only way we can really find out the scale of the additional income we could get is by undertaking a review.
As far as I'm aware, we're willing to pay for the review.
We've made that offer that we would pick up the cost of the review.
Okay, thank you very much. It's nice to have that on the record, that it's a free review. Byron?
Yeah, if you look in the papers on page 72, paragraph 16 shows that the average performance of the 7 districts for collection is to collect 97.9% of the council tax due. And you might think, well, that's pretty good, but that's over nearly over 2% of it, which doesn't get collected, just over 2%. If you look at the upper quartile district councils, so the best performance in the country, it's 98.85, full 1% more. And the mean for all English counties is 97.99, so it is better. And the maximum that some authorities get is 99.51%. So the aspiration ought to be amongst the best. And when there's over £3 million a year at stake here for the county council, and of course some sums also for the district councils themselves, and also for the fire as well, I think it just shows really that the attitude that's been taken by some of these Section 151 officers is extremely disappointing. I mean, they just don't think they can do any better. Well, we're offering to pay for the review, and if it doesn't produce any more, well, they could be proven right. But at least we should have a go, and they should cooperate. There's a lot at stake here, and their duty, in fact, is to help us, and I wish they would. And so I call on the district leaders to instruct their staffs accordingly. I move the motion on the order paper.
Thank you, Byron. Richard?
I second that, Chairman, and particularly note that we're offering to pay for the review ourselves.
Thank you. Would the review extend to looking at whether a single collection service would be more economical? I mean, I know some districts are in little partnerships, but we've still probably got 5 or 6 people collecting council tax, and I mean, it's only pressing a button on a computer, I mean, and then chasing it up. Would the review also look at whether or not they could gang together and have a single collection authority or not?
Within the report, we've put a kind of a draft scope for the review. It doesn't actually include that in detail, but it's something that we could include. Just thinking aloud, it might be some of the districts might not really want to accept that as a potential area to look at, but it's definitely something that we could look at.
Okay, well, while you're doing the review, you could perhaps encourage them to look at it, because obviously paying to collect council tax is a council tax loss which could be spent on frontline services rather than spending money on people actually collecting council tax, in my view. Okay, so we've got a motion moved by Byron, seconded by Richard Shepherd. All in favour? Thank you, Chris. You both done now, and Declan, yep, good. Highway Asset Management Policy and Highway Asset Management Strategy Review. It says that's what it's going to do, carry out a review. Comments have received from Bill Bolter, who is the Liberal Democrat member, attached to your order paper mark 7. Anne Carruthers, Assistant Director of E&T, will introduce the report, and then in the absence of Blake, I will speak first, and then Richard second. So over to you, Anne.
Good morning. To comply with Government's new Code of Practice well-managed highways and to maximise our funding from Government for highway maintenance, we're developing an asset management framework. The first stage of that is to develop a highway asset management policy and strategy documents. We have then gone out to consultation, Cabinet approved consultation last December, and from late January to late March this year we carried a consultation on both those documents. We received 76 responses to that. Two main points came out. Firstly, there was broad agreement with the principles set out in the policy and strategy of prioritising high-risk repairs and focusing on planned maintenance and preventative treatments. Secondly, however, there was a feeling the documents were too technical, and we have taken that on board with the revised drafts that are appended as Appendix A and B to your report. Further key points in the consultation are in paragraph 40 and Appendix C of the report. I would draw your attention to paragraph 6 of the report, whereby we say, and this is an error, I apologise for that actually the report went to scrutiny committee yesterday. It didn't. It went in December, and scrutiny had the opportunity to give their comments then, and they were taken on board. The final documents, as I say, appendices A and B, and we're seeking approval for those along with authorisation for the Director in consultation with the lead member to make minor changes to make sure we comply with legislation as that evolves. And the next stage of the development of the asset management framework is to develop a highway infrastructure asset management plan, and that will set out the detail of how we implement both those documents, and we'd seek to bring that back to Cabinet later on in the autumn this year. The full recommendations are in the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Anne. I've nothing more to add. We've got to do it. We've got less money to do things with, so we need to ensure that we're doing the best we can with the money we've got. So I'll move the recommendations A, B, C, D, and Richard Blunt.
Happy to second, Chairman.
I have no other speakers, so all in favour, please show. Thank you. Next agenda item says future for highway forums. Well, they haven't got much of a one, but there you go. The next report seeks approval to disband highway forums and sets out a new approach for managing petitions. Phil Crossland, the Director, will introduce this report, and then I'm going to speak to it because, again, Blake's away. So over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Leader. Just by way of background, the highway forums have been ongoing for many years now, effectively since the disestablishment of the old agency agreements with the districts in the early 2000s. They were originally set up as to enable discussion between county and district councillors on strategic issues, it says in paragraph 15. However, the function has basically been to provide information, signpost and raise awareness of different consultations and to consider petitions. They cost a significant amount in staff time and officer time, etc. to run. As you can see at paragraph 17, we're spending approximately £110,000 a year on servicing these forums. Clearly, in the context of the significant savings that the council and highways and transportation budgets have to make, and the 2 million potential savings from Digital Leicestershire, I think there has to be a better way of getting that information out there. Paragraph 90, the proposals, what we're putting forward, detail from paragraph 19 onwards. Much of the information that goes out to highway forums can be dealt with through members' news in brief, parish council newsletters, etc. Better information on our websites. For example, the grass cutting new map we've got on there, which is much more interactive, gives us the information. We don't need to attend evening meetings and prepare reports. It's all there in real time. Clearly, there is a role that needs to be considered around petitions, and as you see at paragraph 20, we get on average 15 petitions a year, with 2016 being 20. Those petitions, though, can range in size from the smallest I think we've had is 2 signatures, and it's required a full formal report to a highway forum and everything, which needs to be considered in the context of officer time. So what we are proposing in paragraph 22 is a new proposed approach for petitions, where Anything less than 100 will be dealt with as a service request considered by the department and be responded to accordingly. Petitions between 100 and 500 will be more formally considered within the department by me as director in consultation with the lead member, and then anything over 500 would go to Environment Transport Scrutiny Committee, and those changes will need to be considered by the Constitution Committee. So I think that's all I need to say, and answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I mean, as you say, these highway forums have been overtaken really by technology and time, and there's a lot more efficient ways to deal with petitions than sending them back through these forums. And also, although it is, you've said it's only small savings, 110,000 is, to a lot of people's view, a large saving, and every little saving we can make is important. As Anne will remember when she was in Scotland, many a mickle makes a muckle. So it's a good saving. And also to reflect the fact that we've not got highway forums, Blake, for instance, now has a cabinet support member. So we've increased the member input into the Highways and Transportation Department. So I think it's a saving that we cannot afford to turn down. So with that, I'll move the motion on the Green Order paper. Richard?
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy to second it. It's a pragmatic and sensible suggestion that meets 21st century technology.
Okay, I have no other speakers. All in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Anne. Agenda item 9, County Council Strategic Plan and Single Outcomes Framework. We're trying to it forms part of a Single Outcomes Framework, adopted more joint approach to service delivery. Tom, Assistant Chief Executive, will introduce the reports, and then it's me. Over to you, Tom.
Yes, thank you. The report notes that the Council Strategic Plan is being updated and seeks approval for 5 strategic outcomes for inclusion in the new plan. The current plan was approved by Cabinet in 2014 and sets the strategic policy context for the Council service delivery. And it's proposed that the updated plan will be approved later this year and cover the period up to 2021. And it's also intended, as you mentioned, that the plan will include a single outcomes framework, which will set out the outcomes which the Council wishes to achieve over that period. Excuse me. Taking an outcomes-based approach will ensure that the focus is on what makes a difference to citizens, communities and businesses, and that's intended to support better focusing of resources on key priorities and better integration of activities across the Council services and with partner organisations. The 5 proposed outcomes are set out in paragraphs 23 to 27, and they cover the economy, well-being, keeping people safe, great communities and homes. In addition to approving these outcomes, the Cabinet is also recommended to approve arrangements for engaging with key stakeholders on the contents of the proposed single outcomes framework, and clearly a successful delivery of those outcomes will depend on a good collaboration and cooperation with a range of partners, and the arrangements set out in paragraph 28 will ensure their views are taken into account in preparing and finalising the framework. Recommendations are as they are on the order paper.
Yep, it's good, Tom. We're also going to consult Scrutiny Commission on 19th of July. Engaging with key stakeholders and partners is crucial, but the 5 policies or whatever priorities which you're talking about, Tom, are strong economy, well-being and opportunity, keeping people safe, great communities, and affordable and quality homes. I think that any man, woman or child you spoke to in the street would think that they are good priorities. So I have no hesitation in moving the proposed motion A and B on the Green Order paper. Byron?
Yes, the time's come round. The last one was done some years ago. It's time to refresh, and this approach I think is very sensible, so I'll second the motion.
No further speakers. All in favour, please show. Thank you, Tom. Better Care Fund Plans 1718 and 1819, pages 185 to 210. Got them? It's an update on the preparation and submission of the Leicestershire Better Care Fund plan for the year, as I mentioned. It also sets out the additional resources allocated by the government in March for adult social care, which is to be welcomed. The report seeks approval of the proposed expenditure plan for the additional resources, which were allocated after the council agreed its MTFS in February, which is a bit of a nuisance, but there you go. Better to get positive surprises than bad ones. Cheryl Davenport, Director of Health and Care Integration, will introduce the paper. Then Ernie's here, who's the lead member for Health Matters, and he will speak. So, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today's report presents an updated expenditure plan for the Leicestershire Better Care Fund for the period 2017-18 to 2018-19 for Cabinet's approval. Paragraph 38 of the report sets out the composition of the Better Care Fund pooled budgets at national level. There are three sources of funds: a minimum contribution for each CCG, the Improved Better Care Fund allocations, which come through from local authorities, and then the third area is the Disabled Facilities Grant allocations. These come to upper tier authorities and then are passported to each district council. The new DFG allocations by district are shown on page 6 of the report. Leicestershire's Better Care Fund plan will now comprise a pooled budget of £52 million in 2017-18. The pooled budget continues to be used to deliver integrated health and care in line with the aims and visions set out in paragraphs 20 and 21 of the report. Paragraph 19 of the report also highlights the importance of the Better Care Fund plan in supporting the wider transformation of health and care which is taking place across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. The National Policy Framework for the BCF was published on the 31st of March. As yet, the technical guidance and submission requirements and the timetable for submitting our local plan to NHS England have yet to be published. In the meantime, the Leicestershire BCF plan has been fully refreshed in detail across all partners. Paragraphs 12 to 21 set out how the plan will address the national conditions. This includes meeting the grant conditions for the new adult social care allocation, confirming the DFG allocation, and how specific investments within the plan will be targeted to sustaining adult social care and supporting improvements in hospital discharge. The updated expenditure plan is given at Appendix A, and the new social care allocation announced in the March budget is highlighted in that spreadsheet. It's a non-recurrent grant to local authorities, and for Leicestershire this totals £90 million over 3 years, with £9.5 million of that allocation applied to the 17-18 period. The proposals for how this new grant should be prioritised have been developed jointly with NHS partners. The feedback and support of partners has been welcomed and has involved the Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland A&E Delivery Board. They have obviously a particular interest in delayed transfers of care from hospital. So the investments in Appendix A include priorities associated with the new Home First work stream of the STP, where improvements and redesign associated with hospital discharge and reablement are being coordinated across the whole of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. An example of this is introducing integrated discharge teams in acute hospitals and in mental health hospitals during 2017. A similar report was received yesterday at the Leicestershire Health and Wellbeing Board. Finally, I'd like to draw the Cabinet's attention to the risk register for the Better Care Fund, which is appended to your report. This has been fully refreshed for 17-18. There is also an appendix which sets out all the engagement that has been undertaken with partners. Normally this work would end in March on an annual basis, but a number of additional activities were needed in April and May to discuss the new adult social care allocation. The Integration Executive continues to govern the delivery of this work, reporting to the Health and Wellbeing Board. Cabinet is asked to approve the recommendations outlined in paragraph 3 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Ernie?
Thanks, Chairman. I mean, this is essentially a plan for the future, but Cabinet can be assured that what we're doing so far is well up with the best. There's some really interesting work going on in the integration world that Cheryl's leading on. I mean, the integrated discharge teams, they're people they're employed by different agencies, health, local authorities, right across, but they're all working to the same end together. So when we're talking about integration, we don't necessarily need to have a great big bang of reorganisation. We just need people with the same objective working together, and that's what Cheryl's leading. And the debate yesterday at Health and Wellbeing Board was interesting because there was a representative from NHS England there who was confirmed, in fact, that what Leicestershire is doing is up there with the best. She had a challenge on what we call DTOC. In the business, we call it DTOC, delayed transfers of care. But we know that, and we're working on it. We're not the only system to be challenged by DTOC. So I think this is a good plan, deserves support, and I move the Green Order paper recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ernie. Richard?
Yeah, Chairman, in the world of common sense and not jargon, this is what the man or the woman on the street would expect us to be doing. In times of scarce resources, we're joining together with our NHS partners to link their world to our world. I actually think it's the most exciting thing that we're involved in as a county council at the moment. It looks impossible and sometimes it's challenging, as we found on other parts of adult social care. But actually, if we get it right, we'll make the savings and we'll deliver a better service as well. So I'm very happy to, and particularly obviously welcome the additional nearly £20 million for adult social care grant. So happy to second the recommendations on page 3 of the Green Order paper.
Great. Well, we're all happy to receive the 20 million. We're actually doing, in my view, Cheryl, you're doing an excellent job. Ernie's an excellent cabinet member for health, and Richard's the new member for adult social care, and he's already getting to grips with it. So I think between the four of you, I think Leicestershire's got a great future. And if you look at some of the other counties and speak to other county leaders, as I do, some of them are in a right mess. So well done to everyone. Okay, moved by Ernie, seconded by Rich. All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 11, 211 to 220, Leicestershire Adult Social Care Accommodation Strategy for Older People, 16 to 26. I know. I think I'll just let you introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. In 2016, the Cabinet approved a 10-year adult social care accommodation strategy for older people. This sets out how we'll work with partners to ensure that older people have access to an appropriate range of accommodation options. This includes increasing the availability of extra care as an alternative to institutional care. The report outlines the progress that have been made in delivering the strategy, in particular the successful opening of Oak Court in Blaby in October 2015, and the development of a new extra care scheme in Loughborough at Waterside Court that's due to open in November of this year. It also outlines the proposed reprocurement of the care and support services for all the extra care schemes in Leicestershire. There's also an outcome of the evaluation of the site of the former Catherine Daly House Silverdale Hostel in Melton, and with a recommendation that that site should be sold, and the reasons for that recommendation are outlined in paragraphs 4 to 7. The development of more extra care services in Leicestershire remains a clear priority, and a further report will be presented to Cabinet within the next 12 months outlining future plans. And the recommendations are outlined in paragraph 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, this is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I think all Cabinet colleagues should know that we do not directly provide accommodation. However, because of the Care Act of 2014, we realised the importance of promoting individuals' well-being. And in simple terms, again, in plain English, that is extra care. And the reason why this is important is it really runs on from the last paper, really, because the overarching aims of adult social care strategy is to prevent, reduce and delay a person's need for services. You'll hear that as long as I'm doing this job, I suspect. And this is one of the ways we do it. Extra care and the traditional use of the buildings and sites that we've got and other people have got will allow that to develop. And this is really all our future. We all want to stay in our homes as long as possible. We don't want to go into a professionally run home unless we really are very ill towards the end of our lives. So we're trying to save money, provide a better service, and this is a good report. So I'm happy to move the recommendations on the Green Order paper on page 3 and page 4.
Thank you, Rich. Ernie?
You formally second the recommendation, Chairman.
Byron?
Yeah, could I just ask, what's the future of extra care in Melton now?
We are absolutely still committed to developing an extra care facility in Melton and have had a number of conversations with colleagues in the Borough Council. We've, as it says in the report, undertaken a feasibility study on the site of Catherine Daly House. The study's come back and suggested that because of the uncertainty in the housing benefit payments that may be available in the future, there's no appetite in the market for the development of a non-commercial extra care facility. However, when we market the site, we will be specifically marketing the site for residential use and the potential for extra care, so we will market it on that basis. In terms of other opportunities in Melton, we are still in conversations with the district, with the Borough Council, to identify areas, and certainly Melton, along with Hinckley, would be the two areas that we would be focusing our extra care strategy over the next 2 years.
Okay, no other speakers. Moved by Rich, seconded by Ernie. All in favour? Thank you. Superfast Broadband Programme Extension 221 to 228 seeks approval for the implementation of and the funding for Phase 3 of Superfast Leicestershire. This aims to deliver Superfast to the final 3%. I mean, it's amazing, in my view, that some people still haven't got it, because if you're in any sort of business at all, or even a member of the public wanting to buy stuff from Amazon, unless you've got superfast broadband, you can't do it. I think it's as important as water, gas, electricity and things like that. So hopefully we can get that 3% done, Tom.
Yes, thank you, Leader. That's the objective, is to get as far as we can with the funding available. As you mentioned, led by the County Council, the first two phases of the Superfast Leicestershire programme have seen provision extended to 97% of properties, or will be 97% of properties by the middle of next year, exceeding the target set by the government. And this report seeks approval for a third phase of investment to make provision to properties in the final 3% not currently planned to be served. And as you mentioned, there are significant economic benefits to local communities from superfast broadband provision, particularly in rural areas. The proposal set out in the report is to invest a further £5.633 million, and the sources of that funding are set out in the table in paragraph 12, including underspend and efficiency savings from the first two phases, and a proposed underwrite of funding that will be released in 2023 as part of the Gain Share scheme. That scheme involves BT making payments to the County Council if superfast broadband take-up exceeds certain levels. And the proposed underwrite of £2.461 million will enable further superfast provision to take place much sooner than 2023, should we wait for the payments to be received from BT. Paragraphs 26 to 34 set out the funding aspects in more detail. The proposed investment is recommended to you subject to a value for money exercise, given the rurality of the remaining unserved area, the 3%, and a limited number of potential suppliers. This is a sensible precaution to ensure that the third phase is viable and that the cost of investment per property are reasonable. You'll note also that the third phase could be extended further should any of the district councils decide to invest in further rollout, and as is set out in paragraph 33, up to 1.5 million of any further investment could be matched by BDUK, so that clearly would be a positive thing. A formal invitation to the district councils to contribute will be made should you agree the recommendations in this report, which are set out on the order paper.
Well, I'm certainly in favour of the recommendations, and also the fact that we can type of lend it the 2.4 million until we get it back from BT, because it just brings the broadband further forward. Personally, I don't know anybody who's not got broadband, but I know there are, as I said, these pockets in Leicestershire who haven't got it, and the sooner they can get it, the better, in my view. So I'm very happy to move these recommendations, and I have Richard Shepherd.
I'd second that, Chairman, and I'm really pleased to see this being proposed. The sooner the better. Thank you.
Byron, and then you, Rich.
Yeah, I live in an area, Leader, where there are quite a number of people without the broadband in the remote area of the Beaver Division, where it's 100 square miles of territory and 39 villages, some of them very, very tiny, and remote lodges and farms. I'm very keen for this to succeed. I'm a bit disappointed that the European Union have stuck their nose in it again, and we've got to go through the OJU process. It'll be the last time we ever do that, I hope. But it's going to hold things up for a while. But I'm also slightly concerned, and Mr. Pennell might just like to comment further on it, is that there is still an expectation that you won't get the full 13,000. You'll only get a certain percentage of them. And if you could give me any idea, any more information about that, I should be grateful.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rhodes. I think it's fair to say that it's unlikely that the full 13,000 would be delivered through this investment. Clearly, as we extend provision out into the more rural areas, the cost per property does go up. We don't know until we've gone through the procurement process how many properties will be delivered to. But I think it is fair to say that we won't get to we won't fill the full 3% gap with the funding that's proposed at the moment. Clearly, should there be investment from the district councils and match funding from BDUK, that will enable us to go further. And we are, outside of this programme, exploring other opportunities, with BDUK and the government for future investment. And we wait to see if there will be any future funding from government sources to enable us to go further.
Thank you. Richard?
Chairman, I think the county can be very proud of its record on this service. It's something that, if you haven't got it, it's crucial. In fact, indeed, there are parts of your own division, Chairman, who will be very pleased to see some improvements with this money. 8 years ago, this was a luxury. You could just have, you'd be very pleased to have it, and you'd almost tell people you'd got it. It'd be quite exciting. But, as of now, it's an essential. And I always remember that when we went into recession 10 years ago, the then Prime Minister said every council should do everything it can to promote economic growth. That is the number one thing this country needs to get out of the recession that we were in 8 or 9 years ago. And this country has done better than most in Europe to go forwards. And part of that is this programme. It really is, because there is enterprising people all over Leicestershire. Without broadband, they won't be able to move forwards. So I'm very happy to support it.
Great. No other speakers, all in favour? Thank you, Tom. Agenda item 13, in energy efficient public sector estate, seeks approval to implement the proposed energy efficient public sector estate project aimed at supporting energy efficiency for the public sector in the Midlands and generating a moderate income for the County Council. You're going to introduce this, Chris? Yep. Okay, and then I'll call Byron.
Before I introduce the report, this is Charlotte Connor, whose team is responsible for energy efficiency within the County Council and this report and these proposals.
Is this her first visit here, Chris?
It is her first visit here.
Welcome, Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you.
Along with Antoine, it's his first visit as well at the back.
That's good then.
Okay, Chris.
Members will recall that we've got a successful scheme that operates with schools, whereby for a small fee they can access an energy performance contract. And this enables them to kind of improve their estate by introducing energy efficient measures such as LED lighting, solar energy, extra insulation, etc. What this proposal does is roll out that scheme to the wider public sector. It benefits the County Council. It generates a small amount of income. It also helps the wider public sector in terms of access to the energy performance contract and also access to some finance as well. And it also, finally, it reduces carbon emissions within Leicestershire. The recommendations are on the Green Audit paper.
Thanks, Chris. Byron.
Yes, this is going to be quite interesting, and good to see you here, Charlotte. It's because of Charlotte's team that we're able to do this, because we've been very successful in saving energy in the County Council. Now we're going to share that expertise with other public sector organisations, albeit for a small fee, and they'll be able to make savings as well if they're disposed to do so. We could generate as much as £140,000 from this. And we've got to put a little bit of pump priming money in, which the motion asks the Director of Finance to make available. So I'll move the motion on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Baron. Richard Shepherd, that is. No further comments. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you for your work, Charlotte. Agenda item 14, 233 to 238, Charter for Sustainable British Steel. You'll be pleased about that, Baron, as a Brexiteer. Seeks our approval to support the Charter for Sustainable British Steel and include its requirement within the Council's procurement for future construction and highway contracts where appropriate. Are you doing this, Chief? Yes.
Yes, Chairman. As you say, that's the purpose of the report. And in paragraph 3, it notes the approach from North Lincolnshire Council, which is a major manufacturing area, to support the responsible sourcing of steel reinforcement. What the report doesn't say is that you had a personal approach from the leader of the North Lincolnshire Council as well. In paragraph 11b, it notes the steel industry employs approximately 20,000 people, and it comments on the impact on domestic businesses, the supply chain, the local and national economy. I think the recommendation actually reflects an appropriate time to support standards for the manufacture of materials used in building and construction, and that's what the recommendation is about.
And I agree with it entirely. I was happy to receive the representation from the leader of which borough?
North Lincolnshire.
North Lincolnshire, and also a good friend of his is Pam Posnett, who's also a member of the Cabinet that lobbied me as well. So I can see no problem with moving the motion on the Green Order paper. Byron, sorry.
Yes, I know Councillor Rob Waltham at North Lincolnshire. He used to be a member of Melton Borough Council many years ago. I used to sit next to him sometimes. No, I think he's quite right to ask for support for this. Steel is very important in his part of the world, and if we can use more of it, then that's what we should be doing. This Charter effectively asks us to do that. So I'll second the motion.
It's very good. Right, moved by me, seconded by Baron. All in favour? Thank you. Enforcement programme for underage sales of tobacco products and aerosol paint products, 239 to 248, and that's for this calendar year. And it's over to you, Gary. You're going to introduce it, and it's me to speak, so I think it's now my responsibility.
This is an annual report brought to Cabinet to ensure the County Council meets its statutory obligations under the legislation outlined in paragraph 3 of the report. Essentially, this legislation requires Cabinet to approve an enforcement programme relating to the underage sales of tobacco and aerosols, and these are set out in appendices A and B. The service will continue to target its resources tackling those businesses that, from an intelligence-led perspective, are more at risk of making sales of tobacco to children. Whilst it's not a matter of detailed inclusion in this report, the supply of illicit and counterfeit tobacco products continues to be the main focus of our enforcement activities, not only because there's an under-counter sales threat in terms of legitimate businesses on the high street, but these products offer a cheaper, unregulated and alternative method of supply for children. The illegal tobacco share of the market is estimated to be around 36 to 40%, and Leicestershire Trading Standards are on a regular basis seizing significant quantities of these products from independent retail outlets. We will therefore continue to focus on this area and bring criminal proceedings against those that choose to distribute these products in Leicestershire. We seek Cabinet's approval for the proposed enforcement programmes listed in appendices A and B. Chair.
Very happy to move the recommendations, Gary. It's most important that we try and stop people starting smoking and control the sale of aerosols. But the frightening thing is that tobacco kills, and it's bad, and then they go and buy this illegal stuff, which is actually even worse and kills them even quicker. So the more of that we can seize, the better. You know, you think all tobacco is the same. Well, it isn't. That's why some stuff from Poland's like 10p a pack, and a packet of Marlboro Lights in this country is 11 quid. I know a lot of it's taxed, but at least it's regulated stuff rather than the sweepings up that you're buying from China and Poland and stuff. So I've moved, and Ernie's seconding, I think.
Yeah, formally second, Leader. You've said my public health message for me, so I'll just formally second the recommendation.
Sorry about pinching that off you, Ernie. Okay, moved by me, seconded by Ernie. All happy? Yep, very good. Agenda item 16, 249 to 256, re-procurement of integrated sexual health services. Mike Sands, Director of Public Health, will introduce. Ernie Wright will speak. That'll stop me stealing his thunder. He'll speak first, and then Richard's going to speak. So over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Leader. So as the report sets out, the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet's approval to consult on a new proposed model for the integrated sexual health service. This is across Leicester City, Leicester and Rutland, and would be a joint commission with our City Council and Rutland Council colleagues. It's driven by the contract for the existing service ending on the 31st December 2018. So the proposed model and the consultation would inform the new service, which would start on the 1st of December 2019. As paragraph 15 sets out, there is a kind of a wide range of things that go into the integrated sexual health service. It's primarily around the treatment of sexually transmitted infections, but also includes elements of testing and treatment for STIs and the provision of education and sort of good advice around sexual health education for younger people. Every re-tender, though, is a chance to review what we do, to look at need and demand and consider alternative ways of doing business. And this one's no exception. So we've done a detailed review of usage, needs, demand, and alternative ways of delivery, and the findings of that and how it affects the new service model are set out across paragraph 17 through to the end of paragraph 20 in the main. Just to take you through the main findings of that, we found high usage of the two main treatment hubs, one of which is in Leicester City, and again, significant numbers of people with sexually transmitted infections in the county would choose to go to Leicester City because of public transport access, but also because of anonymity. Clearly, it's one of those areas you don't necessarily want to be treated somewhere where people see you being treated. So we would propose keeping the two main hubs in Loughborough and in Leicester City. Compared to that, the activity of the sessional clinics around Leicestershire is relatively small beer, but nonetheless that provides an important source of access to treatment services, particularly for the under 25s. And again, I think access and anonymity is a key driver around that. That's with the exception of the Melton Mowbray Clinic, where there was low usage across all age ranges. So the proposal for the new service is we would switch the sessional treatment clinics around the county to a focus on the under 25s, and would propose closing the service access within Melton Mowbray. Always keen on the use of digital technology to look at more financially efficient ways of doing service. Last year, as part of in-year service redesign, we switched chlamydia screening to access via digital only, and the intention would be that we would carry this forward in the new service by extending that to digital access to sexually transmitted infection testing and also HIV testing as well. And again, we think that would provide an efficient, comprehensive service, but at a reduced cost. The other main feature is two contracts which are currently commissioned separately from the voluntary sector around targeted work on men who have sex with men and men who use sex workers. We would propose folding that into the main service. It just makes sense to, again, further integrate contracts where we can. Overall, we feel that that would still lead to a comprehensive service, but would probably lead to some reduced access, if you like, across a wide range. Mitigation for that would be twofold, one of which is the use of the online services set out, but also it would be around working with general practice. So there is some overlap between the responsibilities of general practitioners around contraception within their core contract and the local authority responsibility around sexual health services. So we'd seek to maximise the use of the GP contract to mitigate for where we may be just reducing access slightly within our own service. As paragraph 10 sets out, we think if we implement this proposed new model that we would save around about 10% of contract value, and that would be around £238,000 per year, subject to a detailed negotiation with a successful provider around the tariff for treatment. So, subject to Cabinet approval, we would seek a 12-week stakeholder and public consultation running from July and through September, with the intention that the results of that consultation and the finalised delivery model would come back to Cabinet in November for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Lenny?
Thank you, Leader. It's clearly very important for wider society that this kind of service is effective and accessible. The department, Public Health Department, led by Mike, has a good track record of remodelling services and saving money, and I have no problem with knowing that we will produce a better service at lower cost. We'll wait for the report in November, obviously, but until then, Leader, I'll just move the resolution on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Ernie. Rich?
Happy to second, Chairman.
We have no other contributions. All in favour, please show. Thank you, Mike. 17, exception to contract procedure rules, something the Chief had to do in consultation with me. Jane's going to explain it, and then I'm going to move something. Jane?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet of urgent action that was taken by the Chief Executive following the Leader to approve the exception to the county's contract procedure rules to enable the award of a short-term contract to prospects for careers, information, advice and guidance to 16 to 19-year-olds. The budget for information, advice and guidance services will reduce from October 2017, and a new service specification does need to be developed for procurement in 2018, and the award of a new short-term contract to prospects will allow us time to do this. The existing contract with prospects does expire on the 30th of September 2017, and it's proposed that a new 10-month contract will be awarded from the 1st of October. So the recommendation is that Cabinet notes the urgent action taken by the Chief Exec to approve this exception to contract procedure rules.
Yep, very wise while we're developing the new contract. So I'll just move the motion here. I think Byron.
Yes, happy to second that, Leader.
Okay, all in favour? Thank you, Jane. Aye, you're back, Tom. Place Marketing Organisation Governance Proposals 263 to 338. Item 18 seeks approval of the governance arrangements, members agreement, articles of association for the new so-called PMO. Tom's going to introduce it, then me, and then Byron. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Leader. In November of last year, the Cabinet supported the establishment of a place marketing organisation jointly owned by the County Council and Leicester City Council to lead on place marketing, inward investment and strategic tourism across the area. And as you said, this report seeks your approval for the proposed governance arrangements. The strategic governance of the new arrangements is set out in paragraph 20 and in the diagram which follows paragraph 24, and that involves the Economic Growth Board providing strategic direction pending the establishment of the combined authority, and sub-boards advising on tourism and inward investment. And earlier this year, the Economic Growth Board welcomed taking on that role. The company governance arrangements are set out in paragraphs 21 to 24 and include the proposal that the County Council be represented on the company's board of directors by myself, alongside representatives of the City Council, the LEP and chairs of the two advisory boards. Detailed decision-making arrangements for the new company are set out in paragraphs 25 to 27 and include reserved matters which would have to be referred back to this Cabinet and to the City Council for decision, for example, in relation to financial contributions. The recommendations to approve these arrangements are as on the order paper, and I should perhaps say that detailed attachments to the appended members' agreement remain to be finalised, and it is recommended that approval of these be delegated to the Chief Executive following consultation with the Leader.
Very good, Tom. Nothing much more to add. I was interested to read of a new thing, the TECL exemption rule, which I hadn't heard of before, but it seems to do what we require it to do. Yes, indeed. Chief says it keeps lawyers in work, Tom. What do you think of that? Couldn't possibly comment.
I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it all seems good to me, Tom. It's a piece of good work, obviously working closely with the city. So I'll move the motion on the order paper.
Yes, I hope this succeeds. We've had lots of problems with place marketing in the past, and this organisation, jointly with the city, I think is encouraging that, so I wish it well. I'll second.
Indeed, I think it will do well now we're doing it properly with the city. So moved and... oh yes, I've moved on. So moved and seconded. All in favour, please show. Thank you, Tom. 19, future strategy for delivery of library services, transfer of Braunston Town Library to community management. That's what it does. Comments are received by the new County Councillor for Braunston, Amanda Hack. Their expenditure order paper marked 19. John, are you doing this or Nigel? Okay, so John and Nigel are here, and you're going to do it, Nigel, are you? Okay,
yes,
and then I'll be calling Rich. Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet of a minor change to the arrangements for the transfer of Braunston Town Library to community management. Members will be aware that in April 2016, Cabinet agreed to progress a proposal by Fabula, which is a staff-based social enterprise, to manage Braunston Town Library. The Fabula plan was agreed because it conformed closest to the support package on offer to other community groups across the county and enabled the council to save monies associated with the running costs of the library. As is noted in paragraph 11 of the report, the library is built on land owned by Braunston Town Council, for which the County Council has a 99-year lease, for which the council pays the building running costs of the library. As part of its original business plan, it was Fabula's intention to create a new charitable organisation called Fabula Libraries, which will become the charitable body to manage the library. And as work progressed, the Fabula Social Enterprise have decided on the use of a different name for the charitable body, Braunston Town Community Library. This was in order to ensure some more transparency, a separation of functions, and to avoid confusion regarding the roles proposed in the business plan. A charitable incorporated organisation status has been granted by the Charity Commission in the name of Braunston Town Community Library. The purpose and function of the subgroup are unchanged from the original business plan submitted by the Fabulous Social Enterprise in 2016. It's intended that the current trustees of the group will step down to reduce any perceived conflict of interest between the County Council and community library responsibilities once the CIO has been established and an independent board is appointed. So therefore Cabinet are asked to note the change and approve the transfer of the library to the Braunston Town Community Library. Thank you, Leader.
Rich.
Chairman, I think I've said to you a number of times before, each library transfer is as complex as anything else that you could wish to do, and we've already done 30. Along the way, each time has thrown up different issues. And one of the reasons this is before you is because the issues at Braunston are different to any of the other 30, or indeed any of the other 36. And I have some sympathy with the comments made by Amanda Hack as the County Council for the Braunston Division. I appreciate she welcomes the conclusions. I think I agree with her that sometimes we put at jeopardy the goodwill of the volunteers. But that's the process that we have to do. And I think the bit that Nigel emphasised really is that we need to be fair to all of the groups coming forwards. And every time that they cross the line, and we have 5 more that we want to cross the line, it will be a huge leap of faith from those volunteers and the frustration. And I certainly commend Nigel and his team, because in the end, they're the ones at the front line, they're the ones who are dealing with it. We've tried to work with Braunston Town Council all the way through. There are 2 or 3 ways of doing every transfer, and this is the one that fits in with our procurement. So despite the comments that it's difficult and frustrating and the lessons to be learned, I am happy to move the recommendations on page 6 of the Green Order paper.
Ernie?
Thank you, Leader. Can I echo Richard's comments about Nigel and his team for, if they gave medals out for stickability on this one, they'd get one. I'm just pleased that a major library, pretty key part of the county, where we've got, to be fair, political challenges as well as service delivery challenges. We've come up with this deal, so I'm extremely pleased it's finalised, and well done all round. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nigel. I mean, it has been moved and seconded in the recommendations, and I also note Amanda Hack's letter and undertake that if she's got any concerns, that either myself or Richard will help her with them. She is a new member. The previous member down there, Jo Cox, was a good woman, and I hope Amanda's is going to be as good as Jo was. So if she wants any help, help her. Okay, moved and seconded. Please show. Thank you. Thringston Trust, transfer of trusteeship to a successor charitable incorporated organisation. Oh, you're back again, Tom. You ought to try and get yours bunched up a little bit so you're not coming and going. Anyway, Tom's going to talk about it. Tony Gillard, who's the county councillor, has confirmed his support for the proposal, so you're halfway there, Tom.
Thank you. This report is to the Cabinet sitting in its capacity as a trustee of the Thringston Trust and of the Thringston Women's Trust. And the County Council has been a corporate trustee of the two trusts since 1950, and as part of that role has managed the Thringston Community Centre. In the context of required budget savings, the County Council has been engaged in positive discussions with the management and executive committees of the Trust regarding their future financial sustainability and governance. And the conclusions of those discussions, which included a governance review, are set out in paragraphs 14 to 25 of the report and involve a number of proposed governance changes which will allow for a greater local community control of the community centre. Those changes are changes to the objects of the Thringston Women's Trust, subject to those objects being approved by the Charity Commission, that the Thringston Trust and the Women's Trust be merged, that following that merger the assets previously vested in the Women's Trust be ring-fenced for the new objects that I just referred to, and that the trusteeship of the merged trusts be transferred from the County Council to the recently established Charles Booth Centre Charitable Incorporated Organisation. As set out on the order paper, the Cabinet is recommended to approve these changes and to authorise the Chief Executive to take such decisions and actions as necessary to implement them.
I think you've done well with this, Tom. I mean, there's that many trusts and charitable commissions and things down there that it wanted sorting out. I mean, I've served on there in the past as the County Council's representative. We've also put green plaques on the building and all manner of things. It is a very well supported facility down there, and I'm perfectly happy to move the recommendations and congratulate you on the work you've done sorting it out, because it certainly can't have been easy. Byron?
Yes, Leader. I mean, I read this paper with considerable interest and then ready to gain before I began to understand what it was I was actually doing. And certainly there's been some legal gymnastics needed to bring this all together, but I wish it well, and I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Tom. I've moved it. Byron seconded. All in favour? That's great. Hopefully that's the last we see of you today, Tom, is it? Or are you coming back? No? Nothing. Oh, item, no, there isn't. Item revert to Overview and Scrutiny. You have nothing. 22. I have no urgent items taken as urgent. Thank you very much for attending.